introduce myself, future President of the United States. Take 1969.
Welcome everybody. I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Paul Cavitt, future President of the United States.
Yay!
Good evening, folks. Thanks for coming out. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'm surprised as hell that it's there. Good afternoon, good evening. This is the opening rally of my campaign. My campaign officially begins tonight. I've been campaigning informally for the last year. I initially got involved in this campaign because I was just pissed off what happened the last one. I don't think we were given a real choice in it. And since then, I've just really considered some of the points that I stand for, and I have stood for all my life, and I intend to stand for until they put me in a wheelchair, and I'll sit for them. I have developed what I believe is a workable, comprehensive platform to reform American government and American business and American society. As you can see, I'm not wearing a suit and tie. I don't believe in that kind of stuff. Anybody can wear a suit and a tie. But do they have real substance? Can they make a change in our country? Can they make our country a better place for the average American? I know that there are several people who are benefiting from the present situation in DC, but they don't represent me. I don't think they represent you. I don't think they represent the average American. My whole purpose in this campaign is no longer a protest, but a movement towards returning control of the American political system and the economy to the average American working person. How will I do this? Well, number one, I would vigorously enforce the Wagner Act, the Labor Relations Acts of 1935, which allows trade unions. And a number of states have enacted right-to-work laws which have tried to supersede the Wagner Act, which means that you can't set up a closed union shop. Well, I think a closed union shop is a decision that should be made by the workers themselves, not by the state. And the federal government has already passed the law decades ago, and it's still in force. So if everybody had the right to unionize, I think unionization and trade unionism is a very democratic institution that includes the desires and aspirations of the rank and file. And it's about time that the average American rank and file get a better deal. Theodore Roosevelt had the fair deal. No, he had the square deal. And FDR, his cousin, had the New Deal. Truman had the fair deal, and my program is called A Better Deal. Proving the lot of the average American is a national labor force. You spend 2 years doing national service. It could be any number of things. It wouldn't just have to be military. It could be construction. It could be babysitting. It could be delivering meals to people who are shut in. But you spend 2 years of national service, and at the end of 2 years, you get enough for tuition for up to 4 years, a 4-year degree of college, a bachelor's degree, a a zero down payment, government guaranteed home loan. And I am a strong supporter of national health care. Every industrialized country in the world has national health care, and we don't. And now they're just bickering and going back and forth in Washington. You know, Obamacare, let's get rid of it. They're dinking around with that kind of stuff. Well, let's end it. If you live in Germany, you spend 7% of your income in taxes that cover all of your medical and dental and vision, and you have absolute access to the best health care system in Europe. All you got to do is sign a couple of forms. You've already paid your taxes. You make 100 million euros a year, you pay 7%. You make 5,000 euros a year, you pay 7%. You both have equal access, but they cannot deny anybody any medical care in those systems. And I hear the insurance companies, who are the prime beneficiaries of this debacle that's been going on back and forth, saying that healthcare will be rationed. The quality of healthcare will go down. The healthcare workers are going to be subject to pay cuts. They're not going to be able to. People aren't going to be able to choose their own doctors, et cetera, et cetera. Well, you live in Canada, you can use the national health care system, or you can pay for private practice, because in those countries you spend about 20 hours a week in national service, and you can spend more time at a competitive pay rate, but you can also go into private practice and charge whatever you can get. So that's my answer to the insurance people. The medical community, which my oldest daughter is, she holds 2 master's degrees in nursing. She says that the medical community is all for national health care. It's going to allow greater access to health. It's not going to be dependent upon profit. It's going to be dependent upon need. There are rural communities that need medical facilities, and people have to drive 50, 100 miles just to see a doctor. They shouldn't have to do that. And it's because there's no money to be made in their neighborhood. But if the national government sets up a clinic, you have access to health care no matter where you are. A better deal. I'm a strong supporter of the graduated income tax. I think that those who make the most should pay the most. What's going on with this so-called tax reform is we are mortgaging our future by going deeper and deeper into debt, but it's not us who are going to have to pay for it. It's our children and our grandchildren. And I think it's necessary that we start addressing the national debt. In foreign relations, I would use military only as an absolute last resort. Clausewitz, who was a member of the Prussian military in the early 1800s, came up with his philosophy on war and the military, and he stated that war is the last ditch political attempt at a solution. And I think there are many, many options before war. You know, we got people in DC who are clanging their swords against their shields, and they want to go to war today, and I think that that's just stupid. War is not a solution to anything. It creates You know, some people think it's good for the economy. Well, it can also be bad for the economy, and it's certainly bad for human life. And foreign trade, I would make it required to allow trade unionism if you want to export to the American market. What will that do? Well, it's going to improve the living conditions of people in places like China and Thailand and Bangladesh, but it's also going to cause an increase in their price and the price of their goods, so American labor will be more competitive. I hear a lot of talk about the Second Amendment. They're going to take away our guns. We have the right to have any kind of guns as toys as we want, as a lot of people believe. Well, when I read the Second Amendment, I read that firearms are to be possessed by well-ordered militias. Now, this isn't the kind of clubs that go out into the woods and chase down rabbits and blow them to bits with assault rifles. These are the equivalent of the National Guard. It's a state army. It was designed to prevent usurpation of power by the central government. We had just gone through a long and bloody war, and much of it had been won by militias. And it would, now I'm not opposed to private citizens having access to firearms, but I think that they should at least be under orders. So that's my position on the Second Amendment. I think that if you want to have access to assault rifles and Glocks and that, sign up for your local militia, go down for the muster for a Saturday every month. You get together and you march, you shoot your guns, and you make speeches, and afterwards you go out and you get drunk. And that's not such a bad idea. That's the way the system used to work until after the Civil War. So I'm not opposed to access to firearms, but I think they should be regulated.
What about hunting?
Not a problem.
No, it's good.
I'm talking about assault rifles. I'm talking about things like Glocks. You're not going to go out duck hunting with a 9mm Glock. You're going to go out with a 12-gauge shotgun with birdshot. That's not a problem. It's not a problem in countries that have strict gun control laws. Canada, you can have a hunting rifle or a shotgun. Anybody can.
How do you plan to protect our schools?
I plan to protect our schools by making it harder for people to get guns. I think that the solution is not more guns in the schools, it's fewer guns. Access, more restrictive access to guns. I mean, it's a symptom. What's going on in this country for the last decade with all these shootings is symptomatic of a deeper problem. We have to address education, which brings me into education. Oh, thank you. I think that education is a primary responsibility of the government, that we have to have a highly educated workforce in order to be competitive in the world, and instead of making cutbacks in public education or shifting it around to so-called charter schools and the like, private vouchers, I think that we need to concentrate on improving our public schools, that it is a responsibility of parents to respect their public schools. It's not because Johnny's teacher has it out for him that he's failing. It's because he's not doing his homework, and he's not doing his homework because you're letting him play video games all the time, and anyway, you're out doing your thing, and you're not helping your kids with their homework. And you know, if my parents don't think it's important, why should I? So I think it's important that we change our attitudes toward education, towards teachers, towards the concept of public education. We should have the best trained workforce on the face of the earth, and that's going to take effort, it's going to take money, and it's going to take community sacrifice. But America is a great country. It has great potential. Ever since we won our independence in 1783, we have been a beacon to the world. It's just that the oil in the lamp has gotten a little low, and we need to fill up the reservoir so it burns bright again. I am also a strong proponent of a constitutional amendment that would allow for the direct election of the president. We've had too many people coming in who have fallen short of majority. They've been the minority candidate, yet they've taken the office. And this last election is a prime example. What this would do, it would give a sense of belonging to every American citizen, rather than worrying about the big states, you know, Pennsylvania and Michigan and California and New York. The candidate and the elected president would be accountable to every American, not just Americans in certain states that are big and have a lot of wealth and power, etc. This country belongs to everyone.
So you would disband the electoral college?
Yes. Until 1913, United States senators were selected by legislatures. We have an example of a constitutional amendment, changing